You're so sad.
There.
It was...
We were on the cusp. Like, we were fondling a documentary's nuts. And we're back here to searching for shit.
I mean, I can easily just type it in. World War One. What caused World War One?
Yeah.
Let's see what this guy's
The origins
about.
of the First World War are
The Great
still
War.
cause of lively debate amongst historians.
I think this might have been
more
one of the
than
channels.
100 years
Wow,
after
this
the
guy,
assassination
like,
of the heir
has
to the
devoted the
Austro-Hungarian
entire
throne
channel to
in
World
June
War I.
1914. The complex July crisis that followed the deaths of Franz
Shutterstock.
Ferdinand and Sophie Chotek led to a generalized great power war that shaped the 20th century. But this crisis can also be seen in the broader context of the so-called long fuse, long-term causes that made war more likely in post-Napoleonic Europe. So let's take a look at the outbreak of the First World War.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a that's a nice. You want to do a thumbnail real quick?
I'm down for it.
Want to do a live thumbnail? So they use the camera and just be like.
There we go.
All right.
In the decades before the First World War broke out in 1914, industrialization led to huge increases in wealth and urbanization, but also created stark inequalities in society. Ruling groups needed to manage the resulting tensions, so encouraging nationalism and pride in imperial expansion helped to channel the anger and energy of the popular classes elsewhere. But this caused problems abroad.
It is yours to use forever and ever and ever and ever.
Is it?
So go to ArtGrid now and start creating with
Britain, France,
The
and
stock
Russia
photo I
had
bought
well-established
is mine
empires by
forever.
the late 1800s.
The
when a
one
new
on my
player
channel, the
arrived on
astronaut.
scene. Germany became a unified state in 1871
Bought that
and
thing
eventually
outright.
began to create its own overseas empire and blue water navy to appease its growing commercial class and to offset the powerful influence of social democratic parties at home.
Germany actually
Germany's
was
ambitions
booming
for its, quote,
during
place
this
in the
time.
sun caused a spike in
Like, it
tensions
could
between
not
the
have
great
grown
powers,
faster.
who were already in competition with each other. Great power
the
rivalries
German boom
became
during
part
this
of
period-
popular culture with jingoistic press, militaristic education.
The
We'll just
German boom during
leave
this
it here.
period was similar, like post-Napoleon Germany was similar to the US post the revolution, where it just exploded in growing. Like, there was no stopping anything to happen. We're our own people now. We're manifest destinying everything that can possibly be there. And it was fantastic for them. Their economy boomed.
Oh yeah.
Everything
They're
worked
killing
out.
it.
Like, it just snowballed. And just like every snowball, there has to be a stop.
Yep.
Like, there is a hard
There-
stop at the end.
There's a melting or an explosion point.
Yeah.
Education in schools, and everything from children's toys and thriller novels, and even movies focusing on feats of arms or dangerous potential enemies. These political and social tensions caused a growing anxiety among many Europeans, and the danger that they might lead to war was heightened by increasing militarization. As the great powers expanded their empires and worried about rivals, they also built up their military capability and political alliances. Germany's expansion and naval buildup provoked reactions from the other powers. The UK responded by building even more warships, including the new Dreadnought class. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary and Russia clashed over influence in the Balkans, where new independent states had largely replaced the weakened Ottoman Empire with Russian help. By 1914, a system of alliances bound most of the great powers to each other, for better or for worse. France and Russia had been allies since 1894, and the Triple Alliance connected Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Britain had maintained a policy of splendid isolation for most of the 19th century, but its fear of German naval expansion brought it closer to the Franco-Russian bloc to create the Triple Entente. The danger of such alliances was that a conflict involving one or two powers was more likely to drag all of them into a European war. Germany felt surrounded by potential enemies, so it tried to test Entente resolve during two diplomatic crises in Morocco in 1905 and 1911. The British and French held firm, but there was no war, which
is a
angered
thing that
German
people
Chief
do
of Staff
still today.
Helmut von Moltke.
Like, they're just gonna push buttons.
If we
What are you
again
gonna do?
slip away from this Moroccan affair with
what are
our
you doing?
tail
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna fuck with you.
And if there's no recourse, then I'm just gonna get away with it.
Yeah. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Oh, nothing. What are you gonna do? Nothing.
Nothing?
Cool. What are you gonna do? just steaming. And everybody's just mad as shit all the time until finally you go, stop it, smack.
Stop.
Stop it.
Leave me alone.
between our legs, and if we cannot bring ourselves to put forward a determined claim which we are prepared to force through with the sword, I shall despair of the future of the German Empire. I shall then resign, but before handing in my resignation, I shall move to abolish the army and to place ourselves under Japanese protectorate. We shall then be in a position to make money without interference and develop into ninnies.
Ninnies?
I ain't no
Germany's
ninny.
worries about its situation in Europe caused its
wanna
government
develop
to
into
shift
ninnies.
priority from the navy, which had angered Britain, back to the army, which caused France and Russia to expand their armies. To many in Berlin, it seemed that time was on the Entente's side, and Germany's chances would be better if war came sooner rather than later. Historians still debate whether Germany's assertiveness
Was there
or
like
Franco-British refusal to share international power
Was there like a practical use for that fucking reservoir tip on the top of their helmets, or
Not really.
was it last resort?
No, it wasn't a practical use. It was an identifier.
Yeah.
Because all of the triple entente that they're talking about, their helmets all looked relatively similar.
Oh,
They were
okay.
all round and curved. So to prevent friendly fire, they put the large pyre on top of theirs to make them stand out.
Yeah.
This was like the spawn of when camouflage was being used. Like World War I was when it really started. Because it was a necessity.
Yeah.
Once they found out you can spray hundreds of rounds downrange with a machine gun, you needed to hide, and you
Yeah.
needed to do it effectively.
Yeah.
So they stopped putting the bright colors and flare.
Yeah. It's like there's
On
no
your
point of us just like line up like we're playing fucking Red Rover, send one of your fucking people over.
Yeah.
Like and it's like open fire, everybody dies.
So
Next line. That was I
all the
don't.
uniforms were mostly kind of the same ground
played a
colored,
greater role in
regardless of
increasing
military in
tensions.
World War One.
Yeah.
While great power alliances
But they wanted
hardened
to
across
prevent it,
Europe,
so they put the pyre
more
on
trouble
top.
was brewing in the Balkans. The Austro-Hungarian annexation of Bosnia from the
That'd be
Ottomans
funny
in
if that's just
1908
like
upset
no,
Russia
they had this
and
tactic where they
angered
just
Serbian
fucking
nationalists
they ran
who
out of
wanted
bullets, they
closer
just
ties
run
with
at you head
South Slav
first.
populations in Austria-Hungary.
It's like a kamikaze pilot, but on his feet.
But with my face.
Serbia gained more
It's like but
territory.
he's just like an average
Tensions between
jogger.
Austria-Hungary and Russia
It's the next
rose
war.
sharply over the Serb issue and got even worse when Austrian counterintelligence officer Alfred Riedel was exposed as a Russian spy in 1913.
Oh snap.
Long-term causes of the war, like imperial competition or military alliances, didn't mean that war was inevitable. For a full-on war to break out, a crisis had to come that would force governments to decide for war.
When I first started Eve, I was a minor.
Dude,
And I was really tired of being looked at by people.
history
all the time.
videos have a hellacious
So I
amount of ads, it
decided
seems.
instead of being
They
I
sure
would become
they sure do. I'm glad I'm coughing during it.
Right?
It's a perfect time to
My
cough.
favorite role
You
is
get
to
nothing
theological
Eve
pilot.
online.
Game
I
looks
really
sick.
enjoyed the idea of being the
Don't recommend downloading
On
it.
June 28,
we're not
1914,
sponsored.
Serb
Exactly.
Gavrilo Princip assassinated Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie in Sarajevo. Those shots triggered the July crisis.
It was actually a
Following the
failed
killings,
assassination,
Austria-Hungary
and then
blamed
just happened
Serbia.
to turn
Most
into another
historians agree
assassin.
today there was some semi-official Serbian involvement in the crime.
The dude who
Although
was
whether
supposed to
Serbian
kill him
Prime Minister
messed
Nikola
up.
Pasic and the rest of his government
And
knew
then the
about the plot
driver
is
for the
hotly
convoy
debated.
messed
In any
up.
case, in 1914,
And the guy just happened to
there
be
was
sitting
no
there at a
proof
cafe
of
and goes,
Serbian government
"Oh,
involvement.
this was my
The
target."
assassination itself did not
And play.
bring about war directly. Austria-Hungary was disappointed that other European governments did not condemn the killings more forcefully, a view shared by the German ambassador to Russia, Friedrich von Portales. Not only in the press, but also in society, one meets almost only with unfriendly judgments on the murdered Archduke. But the Serbian response was the one that mattered most to Austria-Hungary. Officially, Pasic issued condolences, but also claimed that the assassinations were an internal Austro-Hungarian issue. The Serbian investigation lasted only a week and found no evidence of government involvement. Serb nationalists and newspapers were less
It was the
diplomatic.
government doing
Some
the
openly
investigation.
blamed the Austro-Hungarians themselves for the killings, while others praised the assassins. When the
Not
Austro-Hungarians
guilty.
complained, Pasic said that he had neither the tools nor the inclination to censor the free Serbian press. Back in Vienna, the Imperial Council met to discuss their options. Chief of Staff Franz Konrad von Hötzendorf had argued forcefully for war for years, and he wasn't alone.
Please,
The Foreign
please,
Ministry was
please.
flooded with letters from Austro-Hungarian nobles calling for an armed response.
He's like, you see this?
Artist Josef
I'm not getting any
Fischer
younger.
wrote on June
See
30th.
this mustache? This mustache
Last year, I took the liberty of
demands
writing to say
respect.
that we would
Let me
have
have
to
it.
learn how to tolerate Serbian impertinences without resorting to war. Now, the matter has acquired an entirely different aspect. Conrad put it more bluntly. War, war, war.
Like I said, this
The
mustache
Austrians
demands
decided on a
respect,
military
baby.
response to punish Serbia and
I
resolve
did
the
not-
issue of greater
I was
Serbian
not
nationalism
expecting that.
seen to be
I was not
destabilizing
expecting
the
that one
empire.
there.
The war was meant to be local and quick.
Dude, if you
But
look
attacking
at
Serbia
like
meant risking
historical
conflict with
quotes
Russia, and for
from
Austria, that
any
was
era
unthinkable without
about
Germany's
anything,
support. After the assassinations,
always like,
the German ambassador to
fucking kidding
Vienna
me, dude?
had urged restraint. But on July 6th, Kaiser Wilhelm made Germany's position clear by giving Austria the so-called blank check. Austrian ambassador Count Laszlo Szögyeni-Marich reported the German promise to Vienna. The Kaiser authorized me to inform our gracious majesty that we might rely upon Germany's full support. If we had really recognized the necessity of warlike action against Serbia, Kaiser Wilhelm would regret if we did not make use of the present moment, which is all in our favor. Wilhelm went on to say that he
Only
felt
for
that
a
Russia was
moment,
not ready
then
for
the
war,
moment was
and if
gone.
Austria did attack Serbia, it should do so as quickly as possible. So by early July,
They weren't
4
wrong,
outcomes
but
seemed
they
possible.
also weren't right.
A peaceful
weren't.
negotiated settlement,
Like, honestly,
an
World War
Austro-Serbian
I
war
would
in
have
the
gone
Balkans,
significantly
a continental war
differently
involving Austria, Russia, Germany,
if they
and
had
probably
used
France, or
World War
a
II's
world war
tactics.
if Britain and its empire
If they had
joined France
blitzkrieged,
and Russia. Only
would've
Austria-Hungary and
just
Russia
fucked
had
things up.
direct interests in the Balkans, but the system of European alliances would likely draw other
Eat a
states
dick,
in as
Shutterstock.
well. However, neither the
We're
Triple
literally
Alliance
using one of
nor
our
the Triple
photos.
Entente called for automatic participation
sponsor
in
us
the
or
war.
eat a dick.
Instead, each state had to
That
decide how
is from
far they
Shutterstock.
were willing to
I
go.
don't care.
Triple Entente powers generally
I don't want
preferred
your
a
ads.
negotiated settlement to the crisis.
That's why
If war
it's
did
popping
break out,
up. It's because I
Britain and
used the
France
website
favored
one
limiting the
time.
war to the Balkans.
And they're like,
Although
oh,
Russia was
we see
more
you like our
willing to
stuff.
accept a great power
Let's
war
put it in
over
your
Serbia.
face for forever.
Russia wanted to keep its reputation as protector of the Balkan Slavs and potentially expand its influence in the area around the Turkish Straits that were so important to Russian trade and power projection. If it came to a great power war, France would support its ally in Russia and hope that Britain would join as well. In Britain, a major war was unpopular with the public, business circles, and some members of
Great
cabinet.
Britain.
Some politicians, like Foreign Secretary
If it was
Edward
Russia
Grey,
versus
reasoned that
France,
if a
Britain's
major
on the
war broke
Russian
out,
side.
the outcome would be better for Britain if it joined Russia and France.
Kind of hate each other.
If Germany and Austria defeated France and Russia, British interests and security
Yeah, they're
would
probably
badly
like,
suffer.
yeah,
But there was
at this
still
point,
significant
you can just fuck
opposition
off.
in the UK.
Oi,
As far as the Entente powers were
I gotta
concerned,
deal with these
a
fucking
major
blokes.
war
Yeah.
still seemed
The hell?
unlikely. Understanding Austro-German intentions is trickier, and historians still debate
I
them.
hear they don't wear
Their
deodorant.
leaders saw little benefit in a negotiated settlement.
fuck is
and
that
wouldn't
tower
resolve
in the middle
issue
of their
Serbian
capital?
nationalism or improve Austria's position.
Like I know
in
like
Balkans.
17 construction
The best
workers that can do
outcome
that
would
same
probably
thing,
come from a
and that's with
localized
scrap.
Austro-Serbian
It
war.
doesn't even
At
tell
the same time,
It
launching
doesn't even tell
a
time.
continental war against France and Russia and possibly
Doesn't
Britain.
even tell.
Germany had made plans for war against France and
that's
Russia
you.
and felt that the longer it waited, the more powerful Russia would become and the greater the risk of defeat. Germany and Austria both decided to risk a European war against France and Russia to resolve
It's like the
Serbian
Egyptians'
issue
big
in
pointy thing,
Austria's
but
favor.
skinnier.
If a general war came, it would allow Germany to dominate the
Pyramids went
continent.
on a diet.
The wild card, of course, was Britain. If the UK fought against them, an Austro-German victory was much less likely and would amount to a worst-case scenario. So in the face of rival alliances and conflicting goals and expectations, the great powers of Europe faced the July crisis of
I
1914.
wasn't even supposed to pop.
After
Why did
Germany's
you pop,
blank
shoulder?
check to Austria on July 6th, Austria-Hungary planned to move quickly against Serbia, but that was easier said than done. On July 7th, the Austro-Hungarians planned their next step. Although many were eager for war, the government was not quite united. Hungarian Prime Minister István Tisza was at first hesitant. The Kingdom of Hungary already included many Serbs, and war with Serbia would only increase those tensions. Tisza insisted that Austria-Hungary deliver an ultimatum to Serbia to give one last opportunity for peace, or to justify eventual military action. Crafting the ultimatum took time, and Tisza only approved the final text on July 19th. The ultimatum text was not the only delay. Many Austro-Hungarian troops were on leave for the harvest, and mobilization would take 2 weeks. Internationally, the French
That's the
president and
spirit.
prime
Food
minister
first.
arrived in St. Petersburg
This
on
war of
July
attrition,
20th
we win.
for a
They are
special meeting
hungry.
with the Russians. So if the Austrians gave the ultimatum to Serbia before the French went home,
God damn it, I didn't
Moscow
even
and
put
Paris
that
might
together.
quickly develop a joint response. It's debated how much the
son
French
of
and
a
Russians
bitch.
may have
They are
already
hungry.
known about the coming
They're
Austrian
known to be
ultimatum,
hungry.
but they did use the meeting to portray
Yeah,
an
I'm a
image of
little awestruck right
ironclad
now.
unity.
Imagine they had art grid stock footage in the 60s.
Okay, guys, how are we going to
Fucking
pull off this moon landing?
Stock footage. They're like, you cancel our ads, we give you bigger one.
As President
Here's
Raymond
a
pointed
half hour unskippable,
Carré
baby.
told the Russians his primary concern
Soon
was
enough.
Britain.
You know what? Fuck it. We're reacting to
We
ads
shall
now.
have weighty matters to discuss. I am sure we shall agree on all points, but there is one question which is very much on my mind: our understanding with England. We must get her to come into our alliance. The Austro-Hungarians waited until the French leaders were at sea on July 23rd to send the ultimatum to the Serbs. Of the 10 demands, most concerned the arrest of Serbian officials and the suppression of anti-Habsburg propaganda. To carry this out, the ultimatum demanded that Serbia, quote, accept the collaboration in Serbia of organs of the imperial and royal government of Austria-Hungary. This was tantamount to surrendering Serbian sovereignty, and the Austrians had deliberately drafted the ultimatum so the Serbs would have no choice but to reject it, and war could then be declared. Belgrade replied within the 48-hour deadline and accepted all the points except for those contrary to the Serbian constitution, like allowing Austro-Hungarian officials to prosecute Serbian citizens. The ultimatum triggered a wave of feverish diplomatic activity.
Bold move.
The Entente powers
I
now
respect it.
fully realized the seriousness
Like
of
saying,
the crisis, which had
all
mostly
your
been
shit
driven
is cool.
behind closed
I'm
doors
here
in
for it.
Vienna and Berlin until now.
Except this.
London,
'cause
Paris,
we
and
wrote
St.
that, no,
Petersburg
that's not a thing.
condemned the ultimatum, although Britain suggested mediation talks including Britain, France, Germany, and Italy. But Berlin refused. Russo-Austrian relations were by now red hot. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Sazonov actually shouted at the Austro-Hungarian ambassador in a meeting.
Very
I
professional.
know what it is. You want to make war on Serbia. The German newspapers have been egging you on. You are setting fire to Europe. It's a great responsibility you are taking on. You will see what effect this has in London and Paris, and maybe elsewhere too. The Tsar ordered partial mobilization of 4 military districts on July 24th, followed by the period preparatory to war on the 26th. The
Cool
Russian army
hats.
began to call up reservists, gather supplies, and promote officers. At the
Looking
same
real
time,
southern
the
in
Tsar
this
wanted
chat.
to make sure that these measures did not appear to be directed
Bold
at Germany.
strategy, Cotton.
So Austria-Hungary had a blank check from Germany and had made sure that its ultimatum to Serbia was unacceptable. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. The war was still a regional one, but that would all change in the cascade of events in the coming days. In reality, partial Russian mobilization was an illusion. The General Staff had no plans to partially mobilize, and Tsar Nicholas's generals told him that partial mobilization would disrupt a
That
potential
mustache
full
and
mobilization and
Is some
still
of the
likely
most
alarm the
majestic
Germans.
shit I've ever seen. Look at that.
Military and
Oh
political
no.
leaders
The,
of
the
all
fact that
powers
most
were
of their,
confronted
you
with
know,
the
that's
same
pretty, it was
problem.
already on it.
If one
I keep
army
it on it.
mobilized, its
Oh,
neighbor would feel
alright.
pressure to do the same or run the risk of an early defeat
Damn.
thanks to modern railways bringing
time.
enemy
No, I'm
troops
not
to
even-
the border
one time.
I'm not
within
pausing.
days.
Oh.
This dilemma
There we go.
that partial mobilization would disrupt a potential full mobilization.
There we go. Look at
Partial
this
Russian
mustache and beard.
mobilization was an illusion. The General Staff had no
Lord, that
plans
is
to
beautiful.
partially mobilize, and Tsar
It's a
Nicholas's
thick daddy.
generals told
The
him
fact
partial
that-
That
mobilization
mustache is
would
thicker than my
disrupt a
hair.
potential full
The
mobilization
fact that,
and still likely alarm the Germans.
just the fact that like they're allowed to
Military and
have
political
long ass
leaders of
beards
all
is badass.
powers were
It was before
confronted with the
mustard gas.
same
Yeah.
problem.
Like people had not
If one army
used
mobilized, its neighbor
gases
would feel
as a
pressure to do
warfare
the same,
device prior to
or run
World
the
War
risk
I.
of an early defeat thanks to
So they
modern
didn't
railways
have
bringing enemy troops to the
a
border
need to
within
seal
days.
something.
This dilemma gave the
Like,
generals
that's the reasoning
increased
for why
influence over
the
the
U.S.
crisis.
military.
On July
Because you have
30th,
to-
after
you have to
overcoming
have
the
the
last
seal-
minute
the
nerves,
airtight-
the Tsar
Yeah,
announced
it has to
full
be able to
mobilization.
seal.
All eyes
So-
now turn to Germany. From July
I
29th
disagree.
to August 1st,
I've
Tsar
had some
Nicholas
5
and
o'clock
Kaiser
shadow,
Wilhelm
and it's
exchanged
still
a series
sealed
of
just
urgent
fine.
telegrams.
But
Affectionately signed
I think if you
Nicky
kept it
or
on your
Willy,
chin and
the two
mouth,
cousins
I think
spoke
if you
of
kept
their
it right here, it
affection
should
for
be
each other,
fine.
but also
Lord, that
issued
upturned
demands.
mustache is
Upturn.
Whoosh.
What happened?
Tony Hawk would
I now
freaking
receive
pop a
authentic
900 off of that
news
thing.
Serious
What happened?
preparations
My
for
mustache
war
points
on
to
my
the
eastern
Lord.
frontier. Responsibility for the safety of my empire forces preventive measures of defense upon me.
But yeah, I
My
feel like if it
friendship
was
for
on
you
your
and
chin,
your empire,
like if you kept it
transmitted
just
to me by my
here,
grandfather
not
on his
not
deathbed,
under.
has
You can't have
always been
this.
sacred
Yeah.
to me,
But
and I have
just on your
honestly
chin and your
often
lip,
backed up
I think
Russia.
that would, I think that would be
Peace of
fair.
Europe may
Yeah.
still be maintained by
Like,
you.
that's
if
shared
Russia
by
will agree to
most
of the
stop
people in the
military
military.
measures which
Sideburns.
must threaten
Sideburns
Germany
okay,
and
mustache
Austria-Hungary.
okay, chin okay, but you can't have
London
an
now
underbeard. You
tried
can't
to
have a
mediate again,
neck beard.
including a
Like,
proposal
a lot
for
of people
Austro-Hungarian forces
still
to
in the
stop
military
at
are
Belgrade.
like,
On the
Please?
29th,
Can
German
we have
Chancellor
beards?
Theobald von Bethmann-Hollweg
And then
asked
big
Britain to
military
stay
goes,
neutral if Germany promised
"Y'all want
not
different
to touch
uniforms?"
French possessions.
Yeah.
Foreign Secretary
We can
Edward
make 'em
Grey
real cool.
now desperately sought clarification
Same
from
people
his
that designed
own
the Oregon
cabinet,
Ducks uniforms are
2/3 of
designing
which
these
had
ones.
previously opposed
You
the
know,
war.
like,
like,
Cabinet
man, I just
member
want to
John
not
Burns
shave for
Yeah.
and not get my ass chewed for it.
Situation
All right,
seriously
well, we
reviewed
got
from
you a new
all
rifle.
points of view. It was decided
brand new.
not to decide.
By the way, there are so
Britain
many parts
still would not
you
say
get to
if it
learn
would
how to
join the
use it.
Entente in case of a general war. Hollweg was now unsure of British intentions and tried to rein in the Austro-Hungarians, including suggesting the
That
halt in
clip's gonna
Belgrade
hit big
plan.
in the military
Meanwhile,
prospect.
the German chief of staff, Helmut von Moltke, was encouraging Conrad to
They're
attack.
like, yes,
This led to Conrad
yes.
explaining,
I don't even like
actually
what I
rules
look
in
like with a
Berlin.
goatee.
Bettmann
I would
or
wear
Moltke?
one, please,
Exactly.
please.
Hungarians claimed
Just let
it was
me
now
have
too
something.
late to change course,
I look
and
like a
temporary
fucking
occupation
penis
of
with
Belgrade
eyebrows.
would not achieve their aims. Moltke also began to push for Germany to mobilize, since the German war plan depended on speed to avoid a two-front war. Schlieffen plan called
The
for German
Schlieffen
armies
plan.
to first defeat France while Russia
Them
was
Liefen
still
plans?
mobilizing, then shift the
The
German troops to
Schlieffenheim?
the east. If Russia was allowed to mobilize first, Germany would be at a disadvantage. The
I watched
Germans
the
had started
video
preparing on July 28th,
guy,
but on the 31st, Kaiser Wilhelm announced
asking, like,
pre-mobilization,
going into
the
Walmart and Targets
Kriegsgefahrzustand,
and
or
talking
state
gibberish
of
to the
threatening
employees.
danger of war. The
Fucking
decision led
hilarious.
to another
He's like,
flurry of
he's like,
telegrams.
I
Germany
was hoping that
demanded
this is the
Russia
model
cease
with the
mobilization
double-sided
while
Haven
simultaneously
looper.
asking Austria-Hungary
And they're
to
just
prepare
like,
for
what?
operations against Russia. The Germans also asked for French and British
It's-
neutrality
it's
in a
good.
seemingly imminent Russo-German war. In
At the end of the
Britain,
video,
a
he's
third
like, if
royal
you guys
cousin,
want me to
King
do
George,
more of this,
now called on the
if you guys
Tsar
want me to do more of
end
this,
mobilization.
Dude,
I definitely knock it out.
You cannot
recalled
tell
the
me
moment he presented a draft
It's like
of
Photoshop.
to
that the
king.
1900s were not the
The poor
peak
king
era
was
of
hauled from
men's
his
facial
bed,
hair.
Oh,
and
yeah.
one of my strangest
That's
why it's all
experiences
coming back.
was sitting with him. I
But,
read the
yeah, he
message
goes
and the
like-
proposed answer.
He goes, if you guys
All
like
he
this,
did
just,
was suggest
let me
that it should
know.
be
I'll
made
do another
more
one.
personal
He's
and
like,
direct.
talking to people
By
in
the
public
insertion
and
of
not
the
making a
words,
whole lot of
"My
sense
dear
is like
Nikki,"
pretty
and the
comfortable for
addition at
me.
the
So
end of the signature,
like, he's,
Georgie.
he's like, I don't make a lot of sense a lot of the
So, as
time.
July
So
1914
this is pretty
came
easy
to
for
an
me to
end,
do.
There was a frenzy of diplomatic messages between European capitals.
It's just-
For many military
Schlieffenheimer.
leaders, though, it was too late for any more talk, and they began to pressure the
fucking.
politicians to act. On July 31st, French General Joseph Joffre asked
Telegram
his
me.
government to reverse its more passive policy and mobilize. President
They've
Poincaré
added an extra M and an
described the
E on
meeting, which
that.
lasted
It's
into
just
the
French.
wee hours
Oh.
of August 1st.
They always do an extra.
Joffre appeared with the placid face of a calm, resolute man
looking out-
whose
looking
only
like a person that
fear
doesn't
is
like
lest
France. I
outside
got nothing
the
wrong. I got
German
no problem with
organization,
it.
the
Like,
most
I
popular
just-
of them all,
No, I am
speedily
fine
find
with the
herself
French.
in an irreparable state of inferiority.
Brits can suck it.
France finally mobilized at 4
We left for a
p.m. on
reason.
August 1st. In Berlin, Moltke was
I've-
having the same conversation with
Dale
Chancellor
didn't
Hollweg,
want
and
this.
30
I've
minutes
had,
later,
I've had a
Germany
lot of,
announced
well,
their
not a lot, but
mobilization.
I've had quite
By
a
7
few
p.m.,
English
Moscow
friends
told Berlin that Russia
through
would not stop
online
its
gaming and stuff
mobilization,
like that.
and so Germany
And it
declared
is kind of
war on
crazy
Russia.
the way
On
they
August
look at
2nd,
us
German
and the way
troops
we
were on
look
the
at
move,
them.
not
It is
east,
literally
but
like a
west
family
into
split.
neutral Luxembourg.
It's like
This was in accordance
it's
with
like
the
we love
Schlieffen
you,
Plan,
but
which the
fuck
Germans
you.
said was a
Like-
strategic necessity. The British
Tell you what,
position
they're a
was
good
still
scrap.
not clear.
Like,
London sent ambiguous messages to Berlin,
Pause for story
suggesting
time.
that Britain might remain neutral
Where'd it
if
go?
Germany
Right
was
there.
to
Yeah,
attack
see, yeah, it goes
France.
back and forth.
Kaiser Wilhelm
like I moved it to see the pause button. Like, pausing for story time. We got into a scrap when I was in the Navy with some English sailors. And, like, obviously we took it outside. Nobody wants to get arrested.
Yeah.
They're in port. They're just trying to have a good time. We're on the weekend just trying to have a good time, go to karaoke night or whatever. Get into a good scrap. And they wound up going down. And we're not just going to pummel them. Like, they're in the military too. They're sailors. We respect them to
Yeah.
that extent. And we just sort of pick them up. And I give credit where it is due. They are the best damn sports.
Oh, yeah, chap. Yeah, you locked me
No,
right
they were
on
like-
there.
All right.
All right.
Socked me one pretty good there. Good scrap. Next round's on us.
Yeah.
And they bought us beer. It was like, this is the best fight I've ever been in. I get a free beer. And I got to sock somebody in the mouth. This is great.
now asked Moltke to abandon the Schlieffen Plan and stop his armies from marching across the French border. Von Moltke replied that stopping the massive and complex mobilization was impossible and suicidal. The Kaiser was angry, and his answer showed that he did not fully understand his own military machine.
God, he has a mop on his head.
Your illustrious uncle von Moltke the Elder would not have given me such an answer. If I order it, it must be possible. Soon after, the Kaiser learned that there was no formal British offer to stay neutral and gave his armies the green light to follow the plan and invade Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. By August
So that's
2nd,
basically
the
what
mood in
started
Britain
it.
had shifted towards intervention,
Right
The
there,
British informed the
right?
French that they
I
would
mean, there was a
block
bunch of
any
other stuff
German
before
naval
that,
movements in the
and
Channel
I'm sure
and would
after.
uphold
But like,
Belgian neutrality.
that's the moment.
Belgian
If that guy
neutrality
just
was
follows
Britain's
orders
final red
and
line,
doesn't
but
push
it was a
in,
line that Germany had already
probably
begun to cross.
things go a whole
The
lot
same
different.
day, Germany delivered an ultimatum.
They have
to
time to
Belgium
talk
that it had
things out,
prepared
you
back
know,
on July
They have
whatever.
time to sit there and go,
26th. The Germans claimed the French planned to enter
At
Belgium,
some
so
point,
Germany had
Russia
no
will
choice
have
but to
winter
move
time.
in
Yeah.
preemptively. If Belgium
So,
resisted,
I feel
the
like
Germans
that
would
was-
consider
that's
it
kinda-
an enemy.
wait, no, that's
Brussels
World War
replied
It's not
to
like
the
the
Tsar
turning
Wrong
point.
one.
August 3rd.
It's not like the turning point, but I would say
The
it's
intentions
definitely
Germany
a key
ascribes to
point.
France are in contradiction with the formal declarations made to us. The infringement of Belgium's independence, with which the German governments threaten her, would constitute a flagrant violation of international law. No strategic interest justifies such a breach of law. The Belgian government is firmly resolved to repel every infringement of its rights by all means in its power. That same day, the final dominoes began to fall. Italy declared that it would stay neutral and would not join its Triple Alliance partners in war. Germany claimed France was about to attack it, which wasn't true, and declared war on France. On August 4th, German troops marched into Belgium. Belgium appealed to Britain, France, and Russia to guarantee her independence, and Britain
Belgium.
declared war on Germany.
The bureaucrats.
By August
They did
4th,
nothing to
the
stop
great
it.
powers of Europe were at war, and the First World War had begun. In the fleet, 20 million people
Actually,
died
technically,
or
he
died
told
of
you.
disease
I
and
just-
hunger. But even before the killing stopped, debates were raging about the war's origins and who was to blame, and they haven't stopped since. Shortly after the outbreak of the war, each of the powers published a so-called color book, making its case as to how to understand the July crisis and basically blaming the other side. After the war, each side still blamed the other, and the Allies put the responsibility squarely on the Central Powers in the post-war peace treaties. Since then, the evidence of
kinda fucked them over,
1914 has been
which
interpreted
kinda
in many
caused
different
World War
ways
II.
as historians have tried to answer who was at fault for starting the war.
Just
For years, many historians concluded that all the powers shared some of the blame for the war beginning. Then, in the 1960s, German historian Fritz Fischer made one of the most influential arguments. He claimed that the German government and military elites had grandiose plans and wanted to achieve them through war. The Fischer School claims Germany had long planned a war aimed against Russia and France and directly led Austro-Hungarian actions in order to escalate events. More recently, other single powers have been fingered for their role in the crisis. Sean McMeekin emphasized that Russia's actions turned a Balkan war into a continental one, and Niall Ferguson blamed Britain for its
arguable.
mistakes and naivete. Some other recent interpretations, like Christopher Clark's
have never heard it
sleepwalker
pronounced
theory,
that way.
suggest the war was largely
Naivete.
unintended and resulted from
Naivete.
miscalculations, misunderstandings, and perceived
like I've heard naivety.
insecurities.
Yeah.
He argues
never
that
heard
Germany
naive
felt Russia
te.
and Britain were unlikely to become involved and tried its best to localize the conflict in the Balkans. Another debate centers around whether the war was inevitable. Here, the recent consensus is that the alliance system did not force any state to fight, as Italy proved by staying neutral in 1914.
Until there's no
This line of
reason
thinking
for
stresses
war.
that there were many
War will
times when
always
things
be an
might have taken a different turn, like if Austria had acted more quickly against
Technically.
Serbia, or
It's
if
just
Britain had taken a clear position
this
right from the start of the
Yeah.
crisis. There's also a discussion about culture and mentality in 1914. Historian
US was
James
doing
Joel,
fucking
for
great.
example,
What do you mean?
suggests that the cultural, military, and strategic zeitgeist saw war as a practical and indeed desirable tool for social change and defense of national interests. Since
I like
modern
that
war
this
also
focused
involved the need for a
exclusively
quick mobilization via rail
on
timetables, military commanders
the
became
lead up
as
to-
or even
Yeah.
more important
It
than
didn't
politicians
discuss the
in
war
crisis.
itself.
But
Yeah.
their inflexible strategies could
Like, it
not
was all
respond
just
to the political needs. So
the chain
perceived
of
military
events
necessity
and
dictated
Which
political
one of these
action.
links is the one that
Russian
broke?
politicians
Yeah.
wanted partial mobilization
Probably the
not
part
to scare
where
Germany,
a fucking
but did
general
just that.
says,
And German politicians
"Don't do
did
that,"
not want to
and
bring
then the
Britain
guy
into
goes,
the war,
"I'm
but
gonna
their
still
armies
do it."
marched into Belgium and did
And then a
just
war
that.
starts.
This
That's
was the
Tuesday.
exact
That's a
opposite of
Tuesday.
concept that wars
You know what I'm
politics by
saying?
other
Like,
means.
I think
And
that
it's an
was the key
important aspect
moment.
of
Somebody
understanding
should have Steve
how the
Stunnered that
crisis
fucking
ended
guy.
in a world war. The war
There's
that
a chain of
started
command
with the
for a
July
fucking
crisis
reason,
in
man.
1914 lasted more than 4 years.
I wonder if
War
he's
amongst
like,
historians to make
you
sense
know,
of it
like,
all
well, I guess
still
before he
rages.
died, or
More
where the
events
fuck
led
the
to
guy is
First
at.
World War changed
I'm not
the
trying to
world
get into that
forever.
kind of conversation, but I'm
31
saying
years
wherever
after
he's
the
at, I
July
wonder if he's
crisis,
sitting there
Europe
telling
saw the
stories
end
like,
of the Second World War, which was partially born
that
from
the-
unsettled scores and further radicalization
you know,
after
I was really
1918.
just kind of being a dick to my
1945,
boss,
there would be no
but I
two
totally
sides
started the
to
First
surrender,
World War.
And in April that year,
So
the
there I
Soviet army
was.
launched their final offensive on the German capital of Berlin.
In the streets.
In our 4.5-hour, 18-part documentary
see
series,
this
16
motherfucker
Days in
roll
Berlin,
by.
we chronicle this final battle.
And as I'm
It
sipping
features
my
original
coffee, I
film
go,
footage from Soviet cameramen,
supposed to kill
never
that
before
motherfucker.
seen photos of the battle, detailed maps and animations,
finish my
and
coffee.
expert interviews with David Willey from the Tank Museum, Ian from
And I'll be
Forgotten
damned.
Weapons, and more.
he came back.
Unfortunately, we can't upload this series to YouTube because it shows the grim reality of the Second World War, and that would get
I know
us
it was a different guy.
demonetized or
Don't
worse.
Fuck with me. First assassin failed. I know this.
That was pretty interesting. I do like what you mean. How it wasn't about the war itself. It was about really all the things that led up to it, and a bunch of fucking idiotic decisions and fucking
Yeah.
you know shit. Not idiotic. You know, forcefully made or fucking
Tactical.
some tactical, some reactionary.
Tactical can be reactionary.
Yeah.
That's the word we're looking for, is tactical.